Hello there, my name's Vinny Voodoo, and as I found out last night from scores of my kind viewers, there is a Texture Pack 3 out. So before we go any further, I want to reiterate something I said in my previous vid, and I'll link to it in the description below, and that's that you no longer have to fudge your way to get into game installs in Warzone. A lot of people are going, oh, you just go to settings, it's under game installs. That's true of Modern Warfare. If you own Modern Warfare, you can do that. But up until about 3 days ago, that wasn't an option in Warzone. So if you didn't know Modern Warfare or Cold War, you had to kind of work your way around. Thankfully, as I'm showing here, under General, in the options, there is now game installs. And it is there, and you can see I've got all 3 texture packs installed. One of the things that people were asking is, do I need to download Texture Pack 1 and 2? Can I just download 3? 3 is not a catch-all for 1 and 2. Ideally, you want all 3 or none. I don't see any point in just downloading 1 because each one addresses specific operators and specific guns. Which ones, I don't know. I can tell you that Texture Pack 2 addressed the Stitch and Adler at least from Cold War in Warzone, because as shown in my previous video, Adler's pants got considerably better. And in fact, I'm going to talk about that in a minute, because I've just had a quick look around and I have noticed a very specific improvement on those operators as well, but we'll get to that. So anyway, Texture Pack 3 is in. I'm quite excited to see the differences. I haven't played a game. I haven't gone to my favorite spot and looked at the bench, which if you've seen any of my previous videos, you'll know what I'm talking about, and I will link to them in the description. So without further ado, why don't we just go and have a look at what was changed. So why don't we start with Adler here, the Kurt Russell / Robert Redford mashup there. I'm surprised that either one of them don't sue. One of the things I always talked about were Adler's pants, and they're now even more so improved. I won't do a side-by-side of this because I did one on the previous vid, but I'll just point out the fact that there's now material showing. Now I'm looking at this in 4K, but this video on YouTube is just 1080. So there may be, in that compression, it may be less obvious, but you can see the stains on his left leg there on the right, and unfortunate stains they are there too, but yeah, it just looks like material now. It actually looks like jeans material. That wasn't so much the most noticeable thing. I also noticed that it seems like they put slightly brighter, what's called a key light up behind him. Everything gets blown out there. So that could just be my imagination, but the lighting at the top there just seems to be considerably brighter. Everything about him looks better. So from the radio on his chest there to the straps, everything looks better. The canvas now is very clear on that box bag that he's got there, the slightly brown beige one there. But yeah, let's back out of that and we'll go to Stitch, and then I'll show you the part where you'll definitely go, okay, I can see an improvement here. Stitch's pants are so much better. They're now, you can see the kind of canvas material, the crossed lines, the hatching of the material in his pants. Previously, you could actually see the pixelization on that. And in fact, if you haven't installed any of the texture packs, go and look at Stitch's pants, as I'm doing right here. To do that, by the way, you just pull up an operator, and then you right click, and then you can use the triggers to zoom in, and you can actually turn him around. You probably know this, but worth mentioning. Yeah, the actual texture on his trousers there is phenomenally better, and everything looks cleaner. The writing on the grenades there, and the straps behind him, yes, looks much better. And as I mentioned, I thought Texture Pack 3 may be related to the new operators. So we've got Naga here, and this is where I can do a side-by-side and you'll go, okay, I see it now. If you look at his kind of shirt there with the kind of lizard skin effect on it, and I look at this arm here, I will cut right now to exactly the same shot pre-Texture Pack 3 install. Boom. All right, let's cut back. The difference on that texture is definitely 100% better. It's much more high res. I'll cut back to it, and then we'll cut back to this. It's night and day. In fact, the whole thing is night and day on the operators. Of course, this whether this translates to any increase in quality in game is something that I'm going to discuss either later in this video or in a new video, because I do feel like that it's a bit of a, you know, I won't say con scam, but, you know, obviously in game there's going to be a much more cut down, optimized version of this operator. I do notice the straps on his shoulders still look low res, but his arm significantly better. So let's move on. Okay, going to take a little break just from looking at operators for differences in textures, and I just want to note this. In one of my previous vids I mentioned that Stitch had moving dog tags and so on around his neck. It was the video before this one. And again, we have an operator here who's available in both Warzone and Cold War. And if you look at her ponytail, and this is a subtle thing, but it's there, it's just a solid ponytail. Now, moving hair's been around since the Tomb Raider days, but I guess the guys who work on the Warzone engine decided that moving her hair was too difficult, or they just, you know, couldn't incorporate the code. But if you look at the Cold War version of this exact same operator, and I move around, the hair moves slightly. Now I'm going to do a separate video. I was going to make this part of this video, but I think it'll just be too long, where I feel that it's disingenuous to charge money, actual physical cash, say for example in Cold War, and you get the operator for that, because you have to buy the battle pass. I mean, yes, you can work your way up to getting it for free, but most people aren't. And then you get the Cold War version where everything kind of flows and looks great, and then you go to Warzone and it looks like this. It's not indicative of what you're paying for, depending on which version of the games that you're playing. So their idea of a kind of combined universe is, yeah, it's a little off to me, and that hair really stood out as just being a solid, it's either a lot of hairspray that day, or they just didn't want to do it on this particular operator, and indeed Stitch, and as I've said, other operators too have these quite significant differences. But I'll save that for another video, but I just wanted to mention that, and I'd like to know your thoughts. Please let me know in the comments. Do you think it's acceptable to have what are effectively a substandard version of these operators in Warzone if you pay for them? I'm not too happy about it, but I'd love to hear your thoughts. Okay, moving on. Right, why don't we take a quick look at the weapons, as I'm fairly convinced the Texture Pack 3 is only related to Black Ops operators and guns. I don't think there's much point in going over some of the previous, like the PLL that I've done, which is Modern Warfare. I was just looking at some of these Black Ops guns, and they just look incredible. I was looking at the shotgun here, and even with the horrible filter that they've added to now denote that's the red filter, so this is a Black Ops gun, you can see how good that looks, especially when you do the preview animation. And there's a couple of shots here that get right up close and personal to the gun. And my kind of litmus test when I'm looking at this in my head is, does it look like I can see any pixels? I don't expect it to look real. We're not at that level of fidelity yet with regards to real-time graphics in games, but look at that. If you can get that close and not see pixels, that's a high-res image. And it gets better because I started going through, like I say, just the Black Ops guns that I currently have. And you're going to say, well, let's see a previous before and after. Unfortunately, I don't have before on a lot of these guns because I've only just earned them, and you know, I didn't know there was going to be a third one, a third texture pack. Again, I think the lighting in this has been slightly dialed up a bit because it looks more sheeny than before, but it doesn't look like a video game. It doesn't look real, so it's somewhere in between. We're almost there. Maybe with the current gen, with the PS5 and the Series S, we can finally get to a level where it's like, I can't tell that that's not a photo. I can tell that that's not a photo, but I can't tell that it's full of pixels. Look at that. That's, you know, the scratches and everything on it. It's fantastic. And the next gun I'm going to show you has little welds on it, and it's right here. I think this is the one. And if you press right stick, you can move the gun around, and then if you press right stick again, only on primary weapons, you can get this kind of like just a series of shots. You can't interact with it in any way. But again, there's that red filter over the top, which is slightly diminishing the effect. But you can see the little wells just above the trigger there, and we're going to get a closer shot of that, I think, on the next shot. And I can't see pixels, I can't see textures, I just see a gun. And I was thinking, well, you know, what's the point? Right, there we go. Look at the welds aren't even that good. They're not bad. Welds should look like a stack of coins laid out, by the way. And that was the Friday weld, that one at the top there. And I was thinking, yeah, you can't see these guns. You know, if an enemy drops the gun, what's the point of having this level of detail? And of course, you can see them when you're playing. It's stuck right in front of you. So you do want a certain level of detail and data, and that's just, it doesn't get better than that. If they said there's 8K textures and it doubles the resolution, I'd have to have an 80-inch TV, 8K, to be able to discern it. And I found this Irish gun as an Irish Welshman, American. I picked it up and I looked at it. If you're in game, and I'll show you the clip here, if you're in game and you press left on the D-pad, and you know, assuming you're not being shot at, it takes the time to give you a little animation of the actual gun being shown to you, and you can see that shillelagh gun there, which I thought was kind of fun and interesting, is as detailed as we're seeing here in the actual as it is in the actual operator gun selection menu. So I thought that was, yeah, that's the guns look fantastic, but I can't specifically say, oh, this gun was done up, because if you think about how many textures there are in the armories, how many different blueprints there are, and how many different guns there are, it'd be impossible to say that this is the one that, oh, that definitely improved there. I doubt it did all of them, and I'm sure there's going to be a texture pack 4. There's my prediction. And that will, you know, hopefully do the guns that don't look quite as good as this. But the guns look fantastic. So, as before, you know, should I get it? People are going to ask, is it worth it? If you've got a Pro or a 1X or above, there's no reason not to. I'm running this in 4K and I see no diminished performance. And also, by the way, this 1080p video you're watching on YouTube is 30 frames a second, but I'm seeing it in 60. It's just the way the PS4 captures only in 30. And so it looks even smoother and better because of that. And of course, as I said in one of my previous vids, where it seems to be that it's now pulling less data from the internet, although it's still doing that, so that you may think, well, I don't care what the guns look like. Well, the problem is say an enemy comes at you with a gun that you do not have, it's going to pull those off the servers, and it's going to affect your performance negatively unless you have a really good internet pipe. And so the textures aren't just there to make it look pretty, they're there to ease up the amount of data that you're having to get in a real world, open world area that's as big as Verdansk, whereby the game doesn't know what you're going to be faced with, and it can only deal with it when it hits you, and it's a shitload quicker to pull textures off your hard drive than it is to pull high-res textures off the internet. No matter, you know, how good the speed of your internet connection is, it doesn't mean their internet connection isn't being overloaded currently. Something to consider as we fly into Verdansk. I don't know why I'm saying like that. Why do I talk like that at times? All right, we're going to go straight to Verdansk. I want to go see my favourite bench. Has that monument gone, or is it going to pop in? Oh, it's gone. And there's people going in there. Is this one of the new bunkers? Well, this is my favourite spot to look at stuff, and there's tons of people coming in, look. Ha! Well, I did not know that. I'll have to be quick here then.
Enemy UAV
Bench
overhead.
looks the same. Okay, there's a big nuke there. Bush looks the same.
Boris, guess I'm driving.
I mean, I'm not seeing any of the trees sort of changed then, but I'm not seeing the building pop up that I showed in the previous vid where the roof corrected itself. In fact, since I started playing this game, since the Texture Pack 3 went in, I haven't seen hardly any of that texture pop in where it goes from an incredibly low res shoebox version. You know the town that Doc Brown constructs in one of the Back to the Futures where it's got loo rolls and shoeboxes and stuff like that. This game could look like that sometimes as it's pulling in data. But it looks fine. Yep. Very low res. There we go. So that's been pulled off the internet. That's not been pulled off my hard drive. And I can see why they do that. They could mix up the look of Verdansk very easily by just changing that texture on their servers, and we get a whole new ad, presumably to reflect to the new Call of Duty they'll release in November. Oh, hello. Where are you going? This is a good example of everything looking fantastic. I'm not seeing major textures fly in. And a lot of people are going to say, well, the texture packs, they only affect operators and guns. And I tend to agree. But I also take into account the fact that, as I said earlier, it alleviates the need for the game to pull off a large amount of textures off the internet if I've already got them, even if it's unrelated to the textures that I'm seeing, if that makes any sense. Less work for the server to do.
Enemy UAV overhead.
It's that kind of effect that I was talking about with regards to the guns.
Enemy attack chopper incoming.
You can sort of see the anti-aliased low-res textures desperately trying to purport to be high-res. And if you don't see that on a gun, then that's a high-res texture. I don't know if they'll ever release a texture pack solely for the environment, given that I think Verdansk is going to be nuked. I mean, earlier on I was at that nuke, and presumably there'll be a lot of cross-pollination with regards to the new area and old textures. There'll be a whole bunch of new textures as well. But somewhere on an Activision server there's a high-res version of those barrels, for example. Although they are cleaning up a little. Yeah. See if I can find a garbage bin.
Dropping into the area. Watch the skies.
There you go. You can sort of see that garbage bag there getting better. I'll cut to a clip here of when I was in port and there was a skip full of garbage bags and it looked terrible.
Enemy UAV overhead. UAV overhead.
As you can see there, it's taking ages for it to resolve back in. So why don't we jump out of the game and go back to the main screen, and I'll give you my final thoughts, very early thoughts I might add, on Texture Pack 3. And so whilst it's early days in me using the Texture Pack 3, as always I'll probably post a follow-up in a few days. I record things as I go, anything that I see I think might be interesting for a future video, I just snap bits of. And so to get this out, so people realize, one, there is a Texture Pack 3 out there, because I didn't know there was, and also to allow people to download it via the game installs option through the menu now, I want to make as many videos as that as possible, because I know my previous vids have been about how to get around the fact that there wasn't a game installs. And so people are still posting and commenting, which I appreciate, that, hey, you don't need to do that, you idiot. And I'm like, yes, I know. Before I go, I just thought I'd show you this clip from Cold War. This is the zombie mode that Flint Mushroom and I were playing. And the operator he was using was Naga here, I think that's his name. And the thing that strikes me about this is the bones, the little teeth or whatever they are on his headband bandana there, don't move in Modern Warfare, as always with these sorts of things, as I've talked about earlier. Neither does his headband. But in Cold War, the game itself, they do slightly, not nearly as smoothly as they do in the Cold War Operators Select screen. But if you look at this clip here, you can see they are moving, as are the bandana at the back. But if I freeze it here, this is pretty much as close as you're going to get to an operator in a game. And so, and I'm just looking at the operator there compared to what I'm looking at here on my screen. It's not as detailed as you get in the operator select screen, which I wouldn't expect it to, except for the fact that they're sort of purporting, this is what you get when you buy with physical money a battle pass. You get this wonderful character, and here he is, and he's fully detailed and fleshed out, and look at the detail on him. And yet, in-game, he's not. Even now, with the new texture packs, in-game, he's not, or she's not. And I'm kind of like, this is a vid for another day, but I am going to post that vid about my feelings towards that. Yes, but having said all that, the Texture Pack 3 does improve things. And this has given you a little soupçon snippet of those improvements. And hopefully, as time goes on, I'll have more examples to show of the improvements, and whether it's worth getting. You might think, well, Texture Pack 1's 25 gig, 2's 10, 3's 8.4, at least this is on the PS4. That's a lot of data on my hard drive to take up, but that's kind of not accurate, because let's say you've got a texture, and we'll just use this as an arbitrary example, that's 500 meg and it's a low-res texture, and you download a high-res texture that's 1 meg, that doesn't become 1.5 meg in terms of space on your hard drive. It overwrites the half meg one with the 1 meg one, and therefore you've only got a deficit of 500. So if it's a 45 gig texture pack collection, it's probably only taking 20 gig of your hard drive space. The unfortunate thing, though, is it has to unpack itself, and that takes 100 gig or something like that for every 20 gig of patch download, which is why it asks, it says you've run out of room, you've got to delete something, and it's like, I've got 100 meg free and it's a 10 gig patch. How can that be? Well, it unpacks itself, it sorts itself out, knits it in with the code, and then deletes itself and frees back up that 100 gig. So the reason I'm mentioning all this is people say, is it worth getting? It takes a lot of room. It does, but not as much as it seems. And is it worth getting? In my opinion, absolutely. If you've got an Xbox One X or a PS4 Pro or above, obviously the Series S, you might not have just the physical room for it, but the Series X definitely, and the PS5. Go for it. Anyway, that's enough waffling from me. My name's Vinny Voodoo. Thanks to all the new subscribers, and thanks to you for watching. I will talk to you soon.